Yeah.
Okay, so we know the problem from last week or was it 2 weeks ago? Anyways, we have so many EL students and we are the EL school that everybody flows into. So we just have such limited resources to help our students. So I was talking to some people and kind of just doing some searching and looking at options and what our potential solutions could be. And I came up with three. And this thing is in the way. I thought that one solution could be like collaborative professional development, possibly like a course facilitated by a trained facilitator that we would have to pay, the district would have to pay. And we could do this during our professional development time that we do have once a month. And that facilitator could do some scenarios. We could do just peer-to-peer collaboration, implementation of everything that they would teach us and help guide our general education teachers to provide better instruction to meet the EL learners' needs. Um, that way we would be better prepared for whoever is coming in the district. But again, this would be challenging because we do have different languages spoken. So that would be something that we would have to work through as well. Would this professional facilitator be able to prepare us on the different languages? Another thing I thought was how can we better work with our students? Maybe there's a series of self-paced lessons, and we as teachers have to work through those within a certain time frame. But it would also be some really good resources that general education teachers could go back to that are studied and shown to work with students that are English language learners. And then another solution would be like a 1 day in-person training that we talk about how to connect with ELL students. So they are similar, but the first one would be a course that could last several professional development days. The second one obviously would be self-paced lessons, which could be weeks or months that you continue to build on. And then the one would just be like a one in-person training talk that could be an entire day of staff development, like 8 to 3 or 4 or something. So
I am initially drawn to solution one. I think like getting just little tidbits is like the best at times. Like, okay, like for this professional development in March, I'm going to give you one new tool you can try to implement. Because I know sitting through some of those professional development days where you're there all day, you get like overloaded and then it's like, well, I don't even remember anything now to implement in my classroom. So I feel like you could have professional development that would work for any EL learner, like doesn't matter the language. And where you just like each month focus, it's short, it's snippet, focus on one new skill or thing you can implement or one new tool you could use. I feel like that would be most beneficial for like everyone. I think the self-paced lessons, you would get the teachers who already do everything that would do it. And then the others that would have it play in the background. So it said they did it, but probably it.
so
But
true.
that's my first like initial thoughts for those solutions.
Megan, I agree with you. And one of the things that came out in solution number one that I right away was the peer-to-peer collaboration that you pick up on right away. I think it's a great idea, Brittany, and they're all great solutions, but I'm with Megan. I really like that first one.
Thank you. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think the thing you hit on there was the self-paced lessons. It's kind of like the teachers who would do it. And then, but again, like it's been pointed out, obviously the best way of learning is just peer-to-peer collaboration, having that conversation with each other professionally and sharing ideas and having that one focus thing of the month rather than trying to um, kind of put it all together in a short amount of time. I think they can learn more if they're just focused on one skill during the month or whatever it might be. So yeah, I like that solution number one.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree. As I'm reading solution number two, I think the K-12 Smart School, when you're doing different trainings that you have to do for your district, everyone knows those teachers that press play and walk away. So that's what I think when I get solution two. But I like that peer-to-peer, getting everyone in the same room, have those conversations. I think it'd be a good idea.
Thank you for your feedback. I would agree. And when we are in our professional development, we are, I think, more focused on those days. And just would work best because that's what we're there for. Thank you.
You want to go back to your first slide so you can talk about your stakeholders?
Not unsure. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Yes. Okay, sorry. So to go backwards, so our stakeholders in this would be obviously our EL teachers and then our general education teachers and then the administrators and then parents and guardians. So I just said that some group guidelines would be to first select members that want to work together towards a common goal. And then we want to make sure that they're all willing to work constructively together and that will focus on the topic at hand, on interests and not positions, and that all members are willing to commit to understanding the problem collectively and come up with the best solution, not, and just the big thing here is work collectively and collaboratively and not just think, well, my idea is good and yours isn't, which adults are usually pretty good at anyways.
One stakeholder I think that might be like beneficial too would be maybe EL students that have like been in the program for like a few years or been with the district for a few years and like things that were beneficial to them they could share. And then also things like I really needed this or like I was so lost in this. They could just give the perspective of being like actually one of the students.
That's a really good idea. Okay, we ready to move on?
Yes, I can go. So, Gretna Public Schools problem again is that we have such an influx of new teachers coming in, and so we need to streamline our onboarding process. So, the stakeholders would be we would want a few new teachers that have new to the district within the last 2 years. They're very then new to the program. They just went through the onboarding process. So their experience is very fresh. And we need all levels from like elementary, high school, middle school, special ed, speech path, counselors. Obviously, you don't want the group to get too big, but having just a stakeholder from each of those groups. We'd also want some veteran teachers, so people that have been in the district 10 plus years that truly know the Gretna way. And even though as Gretna has transitioned, also we'd want principals, our curriculum director, human resource. Technology is becoming such a huge part in our schools. And so having someone who helps the new teachers streamline the technology process, I know that has been a big headache for both ends. A school board member, and then I had initially said it was like an internal problem, so I didn't think we needed external like support. But then I last week got some comments back about how like is it only an internal problem? Like maybe parents would want to like be a part of it. I just originally thought like, oh, they don't understand the school system. But I do agree that parents and students probably should be involved and then community members. We already have like businesses and churches that have reached out and been like, hey, how can we help the new teachers in the district? So one of the churches makes baskets for all the new teachers. Another one hosts a breakfast for them. So obviously our community does want to be involved because they want to be involved in the school and continue to support Gretna Public Schools. So open my eyes to that it's not just internal, it needs to be the whole community. My group guidelines are kind of the same that I think the buy-in's already there because a lot of people have expressed how our onboarding process needs fixed or needs altered. So I think a lot of teachers already want to help and the district knows. So I don't think the buy-in isn't going to be hard to get from the stakeholders. But we also just need to establish those group norms right away and just refer back to them at the beginning of each meeting to continue to make sure that we follow those. All right, I can go on to our solutions. And the thing about my problem is that I'm already working with our human resource director um, to solve this problem. So we already kind of have like a solution, kind of a roadmap in play. So we're sending out a survey to all staff members, short and sweet, to just get their initial thoughts of like, what do they think goes well? What do we need to fix? What are some suggestions they may have? And then we're looking to split it up instead of just overwhelming new teachers in the first few days, like split up, have a June session where they can get like their computer and the technology and also like the benefits, those things that you don't really listen to and absorb at the beginning of the year in June. So they can kind of get through that. And then in August, have 3 days of curriculum and pair that really nicely with their mentor so they can not just like handed all these things and overwhelmed. Also spread out information through the first semester a year. Some things they don't need to be told right away in August because they're not going to be absorbing it. They're just worried about getting in their classroom, or they haven't even been in their classroom teaching their kids, so they don't need to worry about what small group looks like quite yet. And then also, we've had a lot of feedback about needing a path for first year teachers, truly first year teachers, and then teachers that are experienced teachers but new to the district. Experienced teachers obviously have some experience, so they don't maybe need as much or as the same information as truly first year teachers.
I love
Megan, I'm gonna jump in right away on this because there's things on here that I really like that you've already pointed out. Our district's very tight about not giving out the technology or the device until they come on board. And when I hire new teachers, a lot of times by mid-June, they're excited. They want the device. They want to start working. They want to start, getting lesson plans put together. So I think that's great to be able to split that training session up into the two trainings. Especially as a building principal, I like the fact that those first 3 days you can really focus on, the curriculum and classroom, kind of the behavior model of the school, the non-negotiables of the school in terms of how we go about business with the learning model and those types of things. And then um, having two different pieces that you talk about in number 4, where obviously a first year teacher who is green to the profession, I really believe strongly, obviously, they're going to need a whole different path of training and development than someone who, for instance, we had a teacher, I believe he taught, I don't know, 12 to 14 years, and he went to Gretna East this year. Well, he would definitely need a different training than what the first year teacher. So those solutions are really good, but probably the one thing that sticks out to me the most is splitting up that training of having two different sections of training. I really like that aspect.
Me too. And I have to say, I love 4 because I was a mentor teacher this year, but I was a mentor teacher to a woman that had taught for many years and came into our district. She did not need my help at all, like just little, like learning our technology ways and the Elkhorn ways. But as far as what they wanted me to work with her, I'm like, she does not need me. So, but one thing that one of the principals did every month was they sent out like mentor teacher guidelines and where you should points that you could work with your teacher that you are mentoring on for the month of August, for the month of September. It was kind of cool. I really liked that.
At Plassmouth, they have a mentor meeting. I believe it's once a quarter. And then there's different things they do throughout, obviously, with their mentees. And then I try and meet once a quarter, if not more, with the new teachers. But is that survey, is that already put together? Have you got that published yet? Because I'd like to see that if you're able to share that outside of your district, it'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I made it and now it's getting approved by admin. And so once that is, I can share it with you guys so you can just see it. We kept it simple, short, so hopefully people will fill it out.
Yeah.
Is it like a needs assessment? That's what I use with my staff. I've created one that I've added to over feels like 100 years now, but I've added to that every year and just put new context to it. It's on a Likert scale of 1 to 4.
And no, we left it open, like short answer. So we didn't want to like sway them to think different things. Like we want to just see what suggestions people have, what they thought was beneficial, what is some areas of improvement, or how they think the program should go. Because we're kind of just going to overhaul it all.
I like it, Megan. Please share it with us when you get that thing rolling.
I will. I like that feedback about the mentors monthly like list or like things that they can talk about. I think that's a really good idea.
That splitting up into two sections, that's something I got hired at Columbus High or Columbus Public Schools, I think 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And the new teachers would have to come August 1, right? And do all their new teacher training and then be here when the rest of the staff comes for PD. Since then, all new teachers come right after the 4th of July for 3 days and do all of HR, get your tech device, and just go through that first year stuff that you need to know coming new to our district. And then you have another week and a half, 2 weeks off before the rest of the staff comes back. I think that was a very positive move that we moved to that a few years ago. Um, like you said, teachers are ready to come and get their tech and get their devices. And then it gives them a little bit of time to get their room ready and get into the building, get your key. So when the rest of the staff comes back, you're not overwhelmed with getting tech, HR, getting your room ready, talking about different professional development stuff, lesson planning. It kind of just settles new staff in, and I think it was a big help, a good move here for CPS.
Good. That's good to know. Yeah. We thought that splitting up, it's too much all at once. So,
Yeah. It gives the very fresh new teacher kind of a chance to catch their breath a little bit rather than go right from all the new service in new teacher in service and right into the district in service, then right into now you have a class full of kids. They get just like what Austin's talking about. They get some of that stuff in the middle, catch your breath a little bit, regroup, be ready, and then move on to the next thing. So yeah, I think too many times, I really like what you guys are looking at because too many times everybody gets caught in, well, this is what we've done, and so to look at outside the box of because we've done that, is it right? Or, let's think outside the box. If we're going to get paid, they're going to get paid extra days anyway. Why not do that in July or whatever? Then let them have a few days off to kind of regroup and think about stuff. So, yeah, I like this stuff. Good stuff.
thank you guys.
Okay, Austin, I apologize. You're the only one that didn't get a copy of this email that I sent out to Brittany and Megan and Todd, and it had information based upon my problem.
Okay.
And quite frankly, we have that a growing population problem. We talked about that last week, and I'm trying to put structures to that because it's a big problem. And I asked the question of this group last week, is it known or unknown if the public is uninformed? And so Dr. C did give us some feedback on that in our feedback from last week. And I'm trying to address that by getting enough people involved in my dialogue by setting up a matrix for that. And Austin, I apologize, I didn't get that to you. I sent it to Todd, I sent it to Megan and Brittany. But basically, we're looking at the stakeholders is a massive group, and we're trying to get information to everyone because if it's not known, we won't move it. And one of the things that we have to remember is we had a bond that failed 2 years ago, and it failed miserably. And the reason was we believe was incommunicated. And so we're broadening that to bring in lots of stakeholders into that in that first layer. And that in the document that I shared with you has it's the bottom layer is all those stakeholders are into if you what I would call a hopper. And so those are community groups that we're going to bring together with staff. Student, you can read it as well as I'm reading it to you, but district leadership, booster clubs, local business leaders, and council members from Ceresco, Valparaiso, and Raymond, parents and community, past graduates, retired teachers, PTO, and probably about 15 other subgroups that I have not added in there. So all of that is to decide the direction we're going to go because they all have different needs and wants. And one of the things that really stuck out of me as I'm reading this text we're in, I can't help but laugh at some of the things he's saying. And one of the items that he said, I think it was on page 37 to 38, he said a lot of times though, when we're going through these type of problem solving pieces, you'll have a group that is all well-meaning. They'll say, show me the rock. Oh, that's the wrong rock and want you to start all over again. And I read that, I'm thinking, yeah, that's exactly what happens. You make a solution, you get a solution, and they say, that's not the one I wanted. And if you don't have buy-in, several of you have already put that in your slides, that's kind of what we're trying to do is get everybody looking at something. And so we have to determine the interests of those subcommittees and help guide them to the creation of norms and operating principles to include but not be limited to a list of things. And we all have our operating principles, and I fleshed it down to some of the things that I've used in the past and wording like giving everyone an equal voice, withholding judgment, being fully present and honoring the will of the group. So because there's from out of that bottom layer, and they're placeholders for now, but there's 5 subcommittees that those people can choose from. Once they get in there, each of those groups are going to have their own operating norms that funnel into the next piece of Mustang management. So that's why I shared that with you to kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking on this massive undertaking we have on trying to get a new building built, whatever we're trying to do to get this thing worked out. So that is the direction we're going with, or at least my thoughts are in terms of this huge undertaking we have in terms of helping put facilities in place that best operate, help our district move forward with the number of students that we have, and we have a growing population. And there's the problem we talked about, and the solution I put up here. And I pardon my wordiness to it, but from those collaborative conversations, once again, those documents I shared with you, out of those collaborative conversations, one of the solutions is to develop grade alikes, which we're already starting to work toward to help streamline those services. We would use a needs assessment, that SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, if you will, or obstacles and threats, and then stakeholder conversations. Solution number 2 could include, but not be limited to, from those collaborative conversations, developing a strategic plan. And if you look carefully at the bottom of that, that includes a survey, a needs assessment, and feasibility study, which includes economic, marketing, technical, financial management piece. And we will need to discuss why that bond failed. And that needs to come out of there somewhere. So in that solution number 3, very similar to that, is establish a strategic plan to move forward in the infrastructure of the existing campuses, and possibly we'll look at the working space that is currently there. And then again, feasibility study, discuss why that bond failed. And so we have some options on the table. Those are some solutions that I threw out there, but versus spitballing, there's so many things that you have to look at in terms of variables. But I'm trying to narrow it down from a massive undertaking to what the needs are of this district, and I cannot do that alone.
What was your bond before? Was it just a bond or did it state like we're gonna have one school in this town?
That's kind of where they were going was, I think the original conversation was that they were just going to add on to the building in Valparaiso, and then they added that to just a new campus building, and it just did not grow. And I don't know. I think they had great documentation, and I don't want to disparage anything from that because I feel underqualified to do so. But I know in talking to our superintendent and talking to those that were here, they feel like there was an undercurrent that was already in play, and it was doomed from the get go, just from the standpoint that they wanted their way. That was the rock, and that's not the rock they wanted, and so that was part of the problem. And I know that whenever you float a bond, it is always a crapshoot on what you're doing, but you have to inform. And that's why I asked the question last week, is it if the public doesn't know, does it mean it's known or not known? And so we have to get it out there in front of everybody as much as we can. And I don't care how we do it. We're going to get 15 meetings out of the way. We're going to do all this subcommittee work, and somebody's going to say they didn't know anything about it. It just happens that way. But the more people we can scratch and scratch out and ink out and have those conversations with, that's kind of what we're aiming for. And I know Brittany and Megan and Todd, you had a chance to look at that. Did that make sense, what I was trying to put together? Did you guys have a chance to look at it?
Yeah.
My apologies, Austin.
No problem. Troy, I'll talk a little bit when it's my turn because I feel like our problems are are the same problem. Columbus is um, growing at a rate that our buildings can't contain, can't hold any more kids, and we're running the same issue. So um, when it's my turn, I'll talk more, and then we can chat about kind of how I th see things going in Columbus, and maybe we can come up with a few ideas for you as well.
Sounds great. Hey, does anybody have any thoughts on those solutions? Are those feasible? Are they too aggressive? What do you think? Is there
I
not enough there?
I like them. I did have a question. I thought you had mentioned last time that for number two, it says strategic plan for the creation and development of a new school campus that includes like um, I guess maybe it's two or three, but would you want to build a new campus in each town? Because I thought you had said there wasn't enough like room to add on to like the one of the elementary schools.
That's a good point. And what if we added, if we what we did, what we could do is add existing to two of the three buildings, I think, because one is landlocked. We could do that and then do grade alikes on particular buildings that have, I guess, the population of students that would fit in them. And that would be a constant juggling match on which ones you'd have in the building. K3 here, 4, 5, 6 in another building. Currently, the alignment is 612 in my building, and so it's K5 and the others. My school has the preschool in it. The high school has the preschool at the end of it. And Brittany, I think you're aware of that. So, but with all that being said, that's what I was trying to refer to is we could add on to two of them, but one of the buildings in Valparaiso is just in poor repair. It is in poor repair.
I mean, like personally, I think it would come down to like showing them like here's our three solutions and here's what it would cost to do these three. Like, like are we gonna keep repairing these buildings? We're gonna have to budget it for this. Or like if we just build one new campus where everyone can be. I'm not saying that is the solution, but I think it's like breaking it down so people can see like truly like this is the long term like money financial situation for these goals as well.
Thank you. You're accurate. We've got facilities. We have pieces of our buildings. We have boilers that are going down in the older buildings. We had to replace a fire, excuse me, I'm not a fire extinguisher panel, but we had what am I trying to say? Fire safety panel that had to be replaced. That was 25,000. That was just an emergency that had to be done, or else you didn't have the ability to run fire drills. So, and that was in one of the older buildings. And do you overhaul the entire system? Those are questions that have to be answered along the way. How long do you want to keep on limping along? It's a tough deal. So, yeah,
So,
it's a big one. It's a big one.
if I recall from last week and this week, and just um, having relatives in the area of Raymond Central, I think what both you and us are dealing with is just the emotional ties that people have to, especially I know in your area, Troy, the emotional ties of if our if the school's not here, then our town goes away. If the school's not here, then our town goes away. And if everything's moved out to one site, then, we lose two identities or whatever. And I think that's the emotional side there with what you have. And that's probably more of a generational emotional thing, if that makes sense, because people kind of grew up in the area. That's where they went to school. They had kids go to school there. And then I think maybe, and I don't know for sure, but maybe what Austin's dealing with is the financial, emotional side of it. Why do I want to pay taxes to help these guys when my kids don't go to school there or whatever? So, and a lot of that collaborative problem solving, some of the things in there talked about the emotional piece and how people sometimes make decisions based on emotion. So, I know when we passed our bond issue here, I don't know, it's probably been 8 years ago now, it passed probably by 60%, but it was very much driven by the community. And so if the community drives it, they pretty much assess the need and the things and the direction they wanted our district to go in. And from that, we were able to pass one. very easily. So it wasn't so much as, wasn't so much as like trying to get the community to buy into it. It was more about making sure we met the needs and requests as well as we could of the community, if that makes sense.
It does. Good feedback. Thank you, guys.
So I talked last week, it's been interesting because you all are talking about district-wide problems, and as the high school principal, I'm kind of narrowing it down into a building-wide problem for me. If you go with Gallup's strengths, my number one strength is empathy, and I know some people be like, "Yeah, really?" But anyway, so with the empathy piece, I really like to see people reach their potential. So when we look at our solutions, trying to come up with a way to keep kids in school, keep contact with our school social workers, and have them be engaged with what we're doing and be able to just make sure they're okay, maybe getting a meal or whatever, and staying out of trouble and such. So we wanted to have the alternative school. And it would be set up to where students would have to apply for it and get accepted into. It couldn't just be like, I want to do this. And this would be done just to ensure that we got students that are committed to the program. We have teacher recommendations, administrative approval, and parent approval. And again, if you're going to be a part of it, you're dedicated to it. And there would be parameters with that. One of the things we've kind of talked about, my school social worker, myself, and our academy director, is having, school in the morning through Edgenuity, and then a work-based learning experience in the afternoon that they could get credits for, or just or have a work-based learning experience where they get a job. So the goal of this is to get them graduated and at least have some semblance of a career experience that they can step into. And the second solution, which would definitely be helpful, but not, in my mind, would not be the ideal thing, is that we could provide the online learning for the students to do at home, same qualifications, and the only time they'd have to come into school would be to take the tests. So you're still going to be able to have you're still going to be able to meet with students. You're still going to have face-to-face time with students. But I don't know that that's the ideal thing to do. And I think it'd be easy for students then, if they wanted to do the homeschool and go to Penn Foster or whatever, I think eventually they would just enjoy being at home and not come in anyway. So but my main goal would be able to establish a really good alternative school that had with high expectations, but it would meet the needs of those students who, for whatever reason, don't want to be in school all day long. Maybe they've got anxiety. Maybe they've got social emotional things where being in a crowded classroom is not good for them. Maybe they just work better if they can work independently, and their goal is they just want to get their credits done as quickly as possible. And so just to not have a one size fits all for all students. So those are the solutions. And then on that next slide with our stakeholders and such, I hope it's there. Yeah. I came up with the stakeholders, obviously myself, the principal, the assistant principal. Originally, Dr. C's he kind of filled me in, maybe had the parents involved. My thought process going into it, you really didn't have the parents right away. It would be more the parents who their students might be a part of this. But then the school social worker, school psychologist, obviously our department chairs, CTE, one elective teacher, and special education director, school counselor, and our director of school student services to kind of help guide and help us build our curriculum. So with all of the department chairs, we could establish an online curriculum that would still meet the standards and still meet we have this in place now for credit recovery, but just to make sure that the classes that the students are taking are going to be similar to and meet the standards of the students who are in the seats every day. And our group guidelines, just when we meet, it's just going to be on time, respect time of the group, be prepared, be professional. when we're talking about this type of situation. Um, you know, be able to share the stage with people and question your own assumptions. Be engaged, don't have side conversations, and then respectful of the others' opinions, and again, positive, encouraging, and be able to share that floor. Um, so again, a little bit different take on the problem than a district-wide problem. I'm focusing more on a problem that I see in the building that I supervise right now that to me has become very important, that we need to find a way to keep more high school kids in our buildings to where we can have those one-on-one conversations and have that social time with them, and make sure they're getting a meal, make sure they're if they have some needs, they can get that in-house therapy that we provide, and those things. So that's where my I guess my heart is, and that's a problem I'd like to be able to solve, and hopefully we can get that done.
Hey, Todd, remind me, were you gonna consider doing Rule 10 minimums? Is that what you're aiming for? Or was yours a little more rigorous? I don't remember.
It was going to be the minimums, but where it would be a little bit more difficult is, so we have some students, we're going to expand our work-based learning experience. We're a wall-to-wall academy school, and so all of our students have the opportunity as juniors, seniors to do internships, but we're going to expand it to work-based learning experience and not make it just a internship. It could be having a job and those types of things. But not all juniors and seniors have to do that. But if you're going to be a part of this, my goal would be, if you're going to be a part of the alternative school, you're going to do half-day school, half-day have a job. I don't want it to be a half-day school, half-day go home and sleep. Because then I think I'm teaching them, or we hope we'd be teaching them the responsibility of coming to school on time, getting your work done, but also now going to work, being on time for work, being responsible at work, and those types of things. So that extended life skill type situation we can give them.
Well, your empathy is coming out in number one and number two, but number one is well written. I like that plan. I think you shared that with us last week too. I was intrigued by that. I hope this works.
We will see. And what we would do is once this group kind of molded it together, then we would take it to the Committee on American Civics, present it to them, and then it would go before the full board for the board to say, yeah, yes, we're going to implement it. And we're thinking financially, we're going to plan for one full-time teacher and benefits, which the median on that would be about 58,000, and then maybe 2,000 for supplies, because we're already a one-to-one school, so we're not going to have to buy additional supplies or devices for our students. I just have a couple thousand in there for supplies that you can need in the classroom, and then provide another $1,000 that the staffing could use for professional development or bring in speakers or something like that.
I agree with that first solution that you had. I think that is the best about holding kids accountable too. And I just think we see such a trend of kids not being socially equipped for the world or how to interact socially. And I just think that's what's led to a lot of our mental health problems and stuff. So kids just being at home all the time and not having to interact, I don't think that's helping set them up to be even successful in the real world. So I love the idea, but yeah, I get school's not for everyone. Like some kids don't thrive there. So that whole thing of like the balance, them learning responsibility between doing both of them and giving them a feel like they probably do have more freedom and choice. So that's why I think solution one would be definitely the better choice in my book.
That's what I like.
Yeah, I like it as well. It really does teach them life skills too, time management, communication, being people are depending on you. It's just so many things.
And I think too that and then I'll be done if they can get a class done. I don't know, let's say they get it done in 5 weeks, whatever it could be, because each one on Edgenuity kind of goes a different pace, but you've got that instant of I accomplished something, and you can, like I have kids doing it now, and I'll get an email from the teacher that, hey, they completed semester 2 of English 1 or whatever, and I mean, I hunt them down and make a big deal out of it because that's their success. And so it makes me, I feel like that's a great way for them to get quicker feedback and quicker success rather than sit through a class for, a semester or whatever. And they hate sitting there, they hate being in school, but this is a way, hey, at least you can knock out 10, 15, 20 credits quickly if you're really working at it. So.
Yeah. Todd, I, I, uh, I don't know that I've ever thought about the student applying to get an alternative school. Here at Columbus High, we have Boys Town and Duncan we can lean on, Pathways, it's kind of an alternative program, Learning Academy. We have a bunch of different things. YFFC we have kids at. We just started a Rule 17 program for expelled or mandatory reassigned kids. But the goal for all of those initially is to help them build those skills and then transition back in the building. And if they can't, then they stay in those placements. But we recommend those placements here. This setting is not for you. This is what we're going to do for you to help you see success. This is how we can help you graduate. This is what we're going to do for you, rather than them thinking, oh, I can just apply and get into this. So these behaviors are going to, maybe I'm going to start with these because I don't want to go to this school. I want to be able to do this other program and just apply, and then they'll accept me, and I'll be on my merry way. I always want to have kids have success in their school, and then if that's not the proper setting, then we have something else to offer them. That's just my thought when I read that solution, but definitely have a different place to have kids go to see some successes that don't have that opportunity in a traditional school setting I think is big. And like you said, your heart's in the right place.
Yeah, we went with the applying for it so that we could sit down with students and have one-on-one conversations with them and find out why do you want to be in this? Because even if it's it may not be the right setting for them in that area as well. So we wanted to have them sit down and explain to us why they wanted to be a part of it. And we didn't want it to be something where just, I want to be in the alternative school. We really want it to be, if this makes sense, kind of a therapeutic type of educational setting for students. So that's kind of where the whole, let's apply for it and make it worth their time to really
Yeah, for sure.
do it. Yeah.
All right, so this is mine. Just a little background on Columbus and when I was putting this together, things I was thinking about. So our high school is 6 years old. We passed a bond, built a high school 6 years ago. Um, when I was going through school here in 2008, we completely renovated our high school. It was brand new when I walked out of there. Now that is the middle school building, 5-8. We have 5 elementary schools. Um, and then the middle school was renovated, so now it's preschool and it's our admin building. So been a lot of upgrades. There's been a lot of asking from the community. We just had a bond that failed 2 years ago. Troy, that's when you were talking, I say I'd kind of speak on that. The biggest thing that the community came back and said was, "You're asking for too much. You want too much." We wanted um, to add on to all 5 elementary schools. We wanted um, different gyms or cafeterias because most of our elementary schools they're the same space. We wanted to add on classrooms so we could potentially move the fifth grade out of the middle school to relieve some stress on the middle school because that was just renovated 10, 12, 15 years ago. So the community came back and said, you're just asking too much, right? And we have Columbus SCOTUS, Columbus Lakeview. Um, so when we were just going through that a few years ago, I was trying to figure out who was involved, who was not involved. That's how I came up with this list. of stakeholders, school board, superintendent, district leadership, teachers, staff. Um, that's certified teachers, classified staff. They have a lot of opinions on what they want to see. Teacher units just maybe local and state. I know our local CEA was involved in some of that, but maybe we need the state union to get involved and come down here because Troy, like I said, we have three buildings. You have three buildings. Um, Everyone has their own problem. SCOTUS doesn't want to pay for this. Maybe they don't believe what I'm telling them, but they'll believe someone from the state CEA. Maybe they'll believe someone from um, our local media. I know our superintendent was on the radio once a week and just was talking about needs, community needs, school needs, what our plan is, how we're going to do it. Um, I threw in the Department of Education in there. I don't know what they could do. I know they help if you build a new school. I know they help fund it for a few years before kind of gets up and running and your numbers adjust. So maybe get them involved so they could hear from different Lakeview parents or SCOTUS parents. Why does Columbus High need something like this? Why do they need why do need this? Chamber of Commerce. Columbus is growing. How is Columbus growing going to impact our community? What's the benefit of adding on to these schools? How is it going to help them help their students at even though they're at different buildings at different districts? Housing developers. I know our current superintendent. He's new this year. He is constantly in contact with different housing developments going on in our city. I know we have three or four going up right now. We're probably going to have close to 800 new doors in our district in the next um, three to 4 years. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of growth. Um, we're going to need to put these students somewhere. All of our elementary schools are already at capacity, near capacity, over capacity. We still have some space to grow into the high school, so we wouldn't have to add on to our high school right now. But we're asking a lot from the community, and the community is saying we've already given you so much. So I put together that list to try to cover everyone who could possibly be involved in the conversation, in the hearings, um, to kind of appease everyone that goes to those because it's not just CPS parents that go to those. It's grandparents. It's Lakeview. It's SCOTUS. It's everyone who's paying tax here already, right? Um, and then the group guidelines. If we are having a hearing, or if we are at taking different calls, different questions from community members. People get emotional when emotions are involved. People start to talk loud and fast and want to get their point across. So we just got to remember, just respect the dialogue of everyone, and it's just going to be an orderly discussion when we're trying to talk about this.
Austin, you made two really good points there, and one of them that I was writing down as you went, but we have got to keep facts versus opinions out of the discussion. And one of the things that you brought up was they don't trust. Sometimes they don't trust the information you're giving them. And our new superintendent, actually faced that because we were given information, we were showing them information that came from NDE, our attendance numbers, and we were showing that the trend is going up, and
Mhm.
they were calling us out and said, no, that's not true. And he said, we're getting it from the NDE. It is their numbers, not ours. Those are facts. That's not opinions. Those are not slanted numbers. That's the actual numbers that have been reported to the state of Nebraska. And that person finally backed off because they were the local voice that had pretty strong undercurrents had come from a little faction of that. So we're poking at that a little bit, and I do understand exactly what you're saying because everybody has their own thoughts on that, and you don't know who's going to be at those stakeholder meetings. So I'm impressed with your list. Very well done.
Yeah, I tried to kind of lean on what we did in the past, and um, I added a few because yeah, you could show them everything they need, and they still won't believe you. But it's hard to argue with four different developments going around town here, right? That's what they can see. They can physically see people are moving in, right? So where are we going to put them?
Just exactly my point. we're showing a 2 to 3% increase every year. Well, that's not a lied number. I mean, we're giving you what we can see. So in 5 years, you're up 10%. Where were they going to go?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. And so moving on to my solutions, kind of going off of what the community said a few years ago, we were asking for too much, right? So I just kept it very simple. We got to come up with a plan, right? Do we want to build an elementary school? We have land we could build an elementary school on, and then we rezone our current boundaries to try and diversify where those students going to go to try to relieve some pressure. Um, right now, we're Columbus is kind of divided by our railroad tracks. The south side of town is kind of the older town. It's growing up north. Lots of new money kind of up north, right? We have an elementary school. How are we going to kind of disseminate some of those students, some of that wealth into maybe going to our new school, or into the middle of town where it's socioeconomically kind of on the lower end where um, how can we change these boundaries so we can get just some diversity in all of these buildings, right? Um, or build an elementary school and move fifth grade back into our elementaries, and that'll give the middle school some room, right? Those are our two biggest issues. Four of our buildings in elementary are 2 to 3 track. Only one school is a little bit bigger than that. We moved preschool out of all those buildings and moved them to the Kramer Center, so we could technically have enough room to move those fifth graders back if we were to build another elementary school to give some of the middle school some more space. So those are simple things as I could come up with to meet the highest needs here at CPS.
One thing I know is like being here in Gretna, we rezone like almost every year with our schools being built, either the new elementary school, middle school, or high school, and that leads to a lot of upset community members
Yep.
for many reasons. And when you rezone too, then a lot of movement has to happen with staff also, we've like learned, which ours is again like opening up and they want a good ratio of new staff with staff that has been in the district. But yeah, rezoning leads to a whole snowball of more
Issues,
problems
yes.
with the community also.
Yep.
Good solutions, Austin. I feel your pain.
Yeah, good